Joining us now is a special guest, Member of Parliament in the 18th Lok Sabha, Mr. Shashi Tharoor. We'll speak to him about India hosting the 28th CSPOC, the key items on the agenda, most importantly, the inaugural session which has just concluded. Mr. Tharoor, thank you so much for joining us on Sansad TV.
Good to be with you, Tia.
Let's begin with your thoughts on India hosting the 28th CSPOC, and very meticulously, the agenda items pertain to some of the contemporary challenges that democracies globally are facing. What's your take on that?
Well, I think first of all, it's wonderful to see this kind of parliamentary diplomacy in action, because frankly, as somebody who has seen government-to-government diplomacy and has also seen the kind of people-to-people contacts and sustained relationships, parliamentary diplomacy bridges that gap between the two very well, because the elected representatives of the people, who are not an executive authority but are themselves voices of their nations, they are talking to each other, and that's very, very good. And of course, the Commonwealth brings together specifically people who have, by and large, in one form or the other, inherited the Westminster tradition. So you've got this whole parliamentary culture in common. There is a language in common. Everything is in English amongst them, by and large. And I would say that the way in which the entire gathering has been marked has been with a lot of conviviality and common sense, as well as friendship. I joined the Speaker in a lot of his bilateral meetings with fellow speakers and presiding officers from different Commonwealth countries yesterday, and I will be doing more today. And my impression has been very, very sort of positive, in the sense that not only is there a certain sense of camaraderie that has been established amongst them, but there is also a lot of respect for India, I would say, which came across in every one of our interactions. And one of the areas I was very pleased to see, some of the developing country parliamentary leaders wanted to get training from our parliament for their employees, and in many cases for their their MPs, because many of their MPs are brand new and have not had the kind of sustained organized exposure to parliamentary culture that they need to function effectively. So being trained, and we have a long established training system in our parliament, they don't. Now, you're right about the agenda, because what's happening today is that there are going to be workshops on social media and on AI. Both are very, very relevant 21st century subjects. And the idea is to really get them to think in terms of how social media affects the work of parliamentarians, and how AI can both benefit and undermine the work of parliaments. So both those subjects, I'm looking forward to some very enriching thoughts. Very shortly after we speak, there'll be the keynotes of these, and they're really very fine people involved who I think will have much to contribute.
We hope to speak to you after the sessions to understand more about
Well, no, I will be missing the workshops themselves, because after the keynotes, I'll go with the Speaker for his bilateral meetings with the various visiting speakers. And so while the workshops are going on, I'll be in bilaterals. But I'm fairly confident. In any case, the workshops are for these parliament speakers themselves. The workshops are not for you and me. But we will certainly learn during the concluding session, I'm sure, what came out of it.
Since you spoke about it, it's a platform, it's an opportunity to for shared practices between parliaments, at least within the Commonwealth. What are some of the major shifts, at least in terms of adaptation of technology, that the Indian Parliament has adopted post-pandemic, and which has now become part of our daily functioning, which we can share with parliaments of the developing countries? Well,
certainly one thing is to move more and more in the direction of paperlessness. That is that, for example, the day's business showing up on a screen on the desk of the parliamentarians. Now, many of those countries don't have the equipment or the readiness for that, but it's certainly something they could learn from us, something they could take forward. That certainly can be very helpful. Our system is not foolproof yet. I think we're getting there, but that's one thing. Something as basic as signing in every day, marking your attendance electronically now. In the old days, we had to line up and sign on a piece of paper. That's gone. Now it's all on our screens. A third thing, now in India, we have a very interesting challenge. We're such a multilingual country that in Lok Sabha, 22 languages can be spoken by MPs. Now, so far, what is happening is that that's being done by human translators, human interpreters, I beg your pardon, who render in real time what is being said. In the old days, we used to have a system you could speak in English or Hindi. In any other language, you had to give 24 hours notice that you wanted to speak in your own language, and they would arrange a translator. Now, no notice is required. We're a full complement of people. But as the Prime Minister was saying in his speech today, translation For example, the records of Parliament, you know, the transcripts of everything was only in English and Hindi. Now, or in fact, for some time, I think it was only in the language in which you spoke. So if you spoke in English, it was recorded in English, and if you spoke in Hindi, it was recorded in Hindi. Now, with so many languages coming, they're using AI to do complete translations into every language of everything. Now, that's going to be a terrific achievement in India, and I don't think any other country will come close. The closest I can imagine that might want to emulate us would be the European Union, which has 27 countries.
Absolutely. So all of these efforts strengthen India's leadership position, at least when it comes to global parliamentary diplomacy.
That was the message that came across in the Prime Minister's speech. He didn't put it quite as bluntly as you just did, but in a very diplomatic way, he talked about India's long tradition of democracy and of political accountability, and he mentioned India's diversity as a very important theme. And I thought that was the right message to give, because what he was basically saying was, if we can manage diversity through democracy, then so can you, and you can also promote both diversity and democracy.
We hope to speak more with you once the CSPOC is over about the significant takeaways and the outcomes, but we understand you have a hectic schedule, so I'll let you go. Thank you so much for taking our time.
Thank you, Tina. It's been a very interesting discussion, and of course I'm really very pleased that India had the opportunity to host this impressive gathering.
But I do hope to speak to you once the event is over. Thank you so much. Thank you.